following is a presentation of the iRacing Esports Network.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the iRacing Esports Network, proudly presented tonight by V8s Online. We are here for the iRacing V8 Supercars official championship at the Autodromo Nazionale Monza, where we have 23 action-packed laps coming up for you in these beautiful V8 Supercars. And what a race it's going to be. We have an absolutely packed out grid tonight of 25 of the best drivers that you will find in these V8 Supercars. They're fresh from practice yesterday in the V8 Scop Series, where most of these drivers took in participation yesterday. So it is going to be an absolute ripper tonight. My name is Zach Hanlon, and joining me in the box tonight is Cameron Dance and Jake Kennedy on the TV screens for you tonight. And Cam, we're going to have a look now at the championship standings, and it seems like Sam Blacklock, who is with us tonight, is the man to catch at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Sam's up the podium, but he's not too far ahead of Brett Loxton, who's in second. Only 63 points adrift of him, followed by Wayne Burke in third, who is 173 points adrift of Sam Blacklock. Forza Arnabi not too far behind as well on 310. That's probably going to be a little bit more of a challenge to try and win the championship from there. But then we go back to Jordan Ross, who's 4 points behind Forzan, and then Jared Philsell, who's 370 behind Sam. But we are yet to see him actually appear again for the rest of the season, so we may see him make a cameo appearance in the next race or two. He's not here tonight, unfortunately, so don't think he's going to be getting any more points at this stage, but we'll see what happens. Brady Myers is in the 7th on 1,083 points. Brian Borg in 8th on 1,037. Riley Blythe 7 points behind Brian Borg in 9th. And then we go back to Jamie McKnight in 10th on 998 points.
Yeah, so it's a very interesting championship right now. And when we're looking at that table, something we have to consider as well is those are the 8 best counted rounds, of all of those drivers so far. And there are still 2 races after this one to go. So we have drop rounds as well. So if guys can improve, or ladies as well, if they can improve on some of the poorer races they've had throughout the season, that point tally can increase quite dramatically. And Forzan Elnabi, Wayne Burke and Brett Loxton are definitely the 4 to watch out for as they try to make themselves to the top of the championship standings and catch Sam Blacklock, who is currently up there. But right now, we are in the qualifying session, and at the moment, Jake Burton is looking very strong. He's got a 0.4 of a second nearly advantage over Dane Warren and Wayne Burke in third. And as I was saying before, these guys are very well in practice from yesterday, had a much longer race, but the track temperature tonight is 41 degrees. And as most of us iRacers will know, That is very hot, and in these lock diff V8 supercars, it's going to be very difficult to lock down that traction and make sure that you get the great exits that you need, which are oh so critical at this Monza circuit. And a couple of drivers have completed their second laps, and some are starting theirs, but most people look to have set a time now, and it's looking pretty tight up at the front of the field here.
Yeah, absolutely. Burton currently about roughly 3/10 clear of Dane Warren, who's sitting second, and then you go back to the likes of Wayne Burke and then Ryan O'Sullivan, Josh Muggleton, Sam Blacklock. Our championship led it all the way down 6th, so it's fairly compact throughout the field. There's about a second roughly between 1st and 15th, so fairly compacted, and then pretty much from 4th all the way down to about just outside the top 20 is fairly close within a second. So it's going to be all about the draft and maximizing saving your tires in these hot conditions and saving fuel as well, so you can have as short as possible pit stop, with them needing to do at least one pit stop tonight.
Yeah, that's exactly right. They do have a 60% fuel limit in the cars tonight, which will mean that they can take no more than 67.2 liters of fuel as they grid up for this race, and they'll use a little bit of that as they're trying to get off the starting line as well. But it's a good point that you raised, Cam. The draft tonight is going to be so critical for so many of these drivers. Circuit Monza obviously is one of the most high-speed circuits that you will ever go to. The straights are very long, and most of the corners are of reasonably high speed as well. And a lot of drivers are going to be looking to use that draft or that slipstream to their advantage to, as you said, save fuel, or also it really does ramp up the opportunities for overtaking. And the best opportunity for overtaking tonight, I believe, is probably going to be in turn 1. That's where we generally see most of the overtakes in all of the racing series, but there are also many other good spots around this circuit that you can overtake at. But we will take you through our grid now, and Jake Burton with his first lap, a very nice job there, 149.586. We'll see him starting from the front of the grid tonight, followed closely by Dane Warren. Forzan El Nabi, one of our other championship contenders, is going to line up beside Wayne Burke. They're going to line up on row number 2. Ryan O'Sullivan, good to see another appearance from him this season. Showed some good running early in the series and has had a few rounds off. So good to see Ryan. He'll start out of 5, and same goes for Muggleton as well, has shown some good performances, although only a few. Sam Blacklock, he's going to have to do a lot tonight out of 7th to claw back to Forzan El Nabi and Wayne Burke. Brett Loxton as well, starting from 8th. Brady Myers starts from 9th, and Corey Preston rounds out your top 10.
In 11th, we have Ross Rizzo, and lining up beside him will be Chris Cox. Cooper Webster will be in 13th, followed by Thomas McMillan in 14th. 15th goes to Michael Taliancic, with Jordan Ross in 16th. Sam Sutton all the way back in 17th. Not probably the place he wants to be, but we'll see him probably move through the field. 18th goes to Steve Jansen, with Greg Sharp in 19th. And rounding out the top 20, which from 11th to 20th is actually separated by less than a second. So going to be very close. Rounding out the top 20 will be David Kinman.
Yes, then we have we have Martin Silvassi in 21st, Thomas Hinz 22nd, Emily Jones racing all the way from Japan tonight in 23rd, David Miller in 24th, and Mitchell McLeod, unable to set a time, will round out this 25-car grid for you tonight, as it appears that we have most of the cars gridded up on this very long home straight at Autodromo Nazionale Monza as the revs rise and we get ready for 25 V8 supercars to go. They are off. Good start there from Jake Burton. Didn't get much wheel spin off the line. He's going to have it down into turn number 1. Back in the field, there's a little bit of jostling, but Burton has done a great job there to get into the first corner nice and cleanly. Wayne Burke having a bit of a look down the inside of Ryan O'Sullivan. Sully going to try and come back down on the inside, not able to do it. The 2 TTR cars of Muggleton and Blacklock almost getting together there, having to check each other up a bit. But it looks like we've got a very clean start tonight. A few little rubs, I think. Cooper Webster's got a bit of damage, and Wayne Burke has also had to slow down as well. So a minor incident there, but a fairly clean getaway here tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody's pretty much made it through the first turns fairly cleanly. You've obviously seen Cooper Webster with a little bit of that damaged boot, so no longer a Commodore, but I'm sure he'll be able to keep soldiering on, and Wayne Burke with the slowdown. But for the most part, everybody else has made it fairly straightforward start and made it through.
Yeah, now you can see already Dane Warren is very eager to make a break with Jake Burton up the front here. They've already got themselves a little bit of a gap now over Forzan El Nabi, but he's still definitely within that draft range, and they've pulled a little more on Ryan O'Sullivan too, as Josh Muggleton runs very deep into the Ascari chicane there, and that's going to affect the exit out of that corner, which he'll so desperately want. And wouldn't be surprised to see Muggleton helping out his teammate in Blacklock, but Sam Sutton has a little bit of contact with McMillan there, and they're now going 3 wide as they come down into the Parabolica. Who's going to be the bravest on the brakes and who's going to be sensible? It looks like they all managed to sort themselves out relatively well. Thomas Hinz having to run around that outside line there. Greg Sharp making nice moves there on Chris Coxhead, and we've also just noticed as well, Jordan Ross, while these guys are battling, has dived into the pit lanes. We'll get a report on that for you shortly. But Chris Coxhead now pushing Thomas McMillan as they come into turn number 1. But Greg Sharp's going to stay on the inside there. And Thomas Hinz also trying to make that move on Coxhead as he decided to bail out of the move at turn 1. Sam Sutton just getting a little bit taily as they come out of the first corner too. But these guys are probably going to want to settle themselves down and just keep in that little bit of a train, because McMillan's starting to fall off Corey Preston already, and they'll really be wanting to keep in that draft.
Yeah, absolutely. The moment you lose that draft is the moment where you're going to struggle to catch back up. So that's the last thing they're going to do. And I've actually just found out what the reasoning for the penalty for Ross was, and it was actually because he jumped the start.
Oh, that's never good to do, but it is so easy to just get a little eager on that clutch pedal and just let it slip even that 1% too much, and you just creep over the line a little bit. And that's very unfortunate for him, because he's been putting in some great performances all throughout this series. Almost won by, lost actually by 0.02 of a second last time out when we were at Daytona. So he's going to have a lot of work to do. But meanwhile, out the front, Jake Burton is still your race leader, and Forzan El Nabi has managed to recover a little bit of that gap that the 2 cars out in front had gained on him, and he's now definitely well within striking distance of both of those cars. Ryan O'Sullivan now is the man with a little bit of work to do, and as you were saying, Cam, once you get out of that draft, it's a massive advantage that you lose having not having that slipstream effect. And so he's going to have to do a lot of work to get back in and help pull himself back up. But meanwhile, the pack with we'll just actually go back up to the front, because there is a change for the lead as Dane Warren decides to send it up the inside of Jake Burton into turn number 1. We'll get a replay of that for you, and as we'll be able to see very shortly, just a lot of overspeed there for Dane Warren, and just allowed him to come right up on the inside of Jake Burton there, and a very nice clean move indeed. And now that might allow Jake to do a little bit of fuel saving and play a little more strategy for the rest of the race. But we are back now with you live, and the battle for Chris Coxhead, Thomas Hinz, Greg Sharp, and David Kinman, as we just went to that replay, was heating up. They were going 2 by 2 by 2 down the front straight once again, and this little battle pack here really seems to be the one with the most fight in it at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. There's all sorts going on through the field. Good move by Dane to move into the lead there up the inside of Burton at turn 1, but this pack further back in the field is all on with all sorts going on, and Kinman's looking at a move on Sharp at the moment.
Yeah, Kinman actually just got through on Sharp, and Greg Sharp's actually had to give up to Sam Sutton as well. But a very nice run coming out of the second Lesmo there, and was able to use the draft to pull himself up alongside. Just behind them though, Mitchell McLeod, who started dead last in this race, is starting to progress himself forward, and he's now trying to look around the outside of believe that's Steve Jansen, and looks like he's going to make that work. But meanwhile, back up at the front, it is on again for the lead, and it looks like Jake Burton is just going to slide himself. Little bit of a rub with a little bit of overrun there as they came through, but no harm, no foul. Jake Burton gets through and gets the lead once again, but that has allowed Ryan O'Sullivan to come back up on this group, as well as Muggleton and Blacklock. So wouldn't be too far-fetched to believe that Jake actually might want to just slightly control the pace of this race to try and help his teammate in Blacklock to catch up to his competitors, who are Forzan El Nabi. Forzan El Nabi is actually the only really remaining competitor he has to worry about up front, but nonetheless, those championship points are very important. Everyone counts, so we may see Jake just holding up the pace to allow Sam to come through, but we will have to see as the race progresses. But as we can see now, this little lead pack that they had going for 3 cars is now turned into a train of all the way back to 10th place, where Wayne Burke is sitting. And with that pace that we saw from Wayne in qualifying, wouldn't be surprised to see him coming through that pack as well either. Yeah, absolutely. It's all that battling's just created this massive train, and if they're actually not careful, this could bring that little group of Taylor Anchorage, Webster and Preston into it as well. So this could be all on, but like we've heard in the past as well, there's no team orders at TTR, knock on wood, but we'll see what happens tonight, and those championship points are going to be very, very valuable to Sam especially. Yeah, and Sam obviously not a previous champion in this series. Would definitely be something for himself to pick up one of those, as many of us hope to do so one day. And once again, we see into turn number 1, Dane Warren firing it down the inside of Jake Burton, and Jake giving Dane a little more room that time around and opting to try and get a better exit. Might be looking to have a bit of a go as they come into the second chicane, and he does pull to the inside. I don't think he quite has the speed to make that work though. He pulls back in, and we'll have to try somewhere else. But turn 1 is really your best opportunity for someone making a mistake, and it is very easy to make a mistake around Monza. I can't tell you the amount of laps that I've done around this place, and the amount of laps that I was probably genuinely happy with. I could probably only count them on 2 hands. So very difficult track, and one mistake is so, you know, it's not only so easy to do, but it can cause you such a loss of time as well. Even if you just get a bit of a bad run coming through a scurry or something, you can lose 2 or even 3 tenths from that. So very, very important not to do so. But at the moment, everyone seems to be getting through nicely. Dane Warren just running a little deep into a scurry there, but managing to keep the traction down very nicely as he comes out of the Ascari complex, and everyone just kind of settling into race mode now. I think a few people will be doing a bit of fuel saving, and just looking back at that pack that we were observing before, Chris Coxhead now leads that pack ahead of Thomas Hinz and David Kinman and Sam Sutton. They were sitting a little further back previously. They've managed to recover a bit of that gap, and we might see something happening as we come into turn 1, but up at the head of the field, for once, there's no lead change, and Jake Burton is going to have to stay tucked in, and maybe he's deciding to change his strategy up a bit here. Yeah, that's probably the case for a lot of these guys inside the top 10, is just starting to be a little bit more patient and starting to save the fuel, save the tyres, and just think about the long-term effect rather than trying to push and get that position for short-term gain. Yeah, because you can lose so much just, you know, for the sake of one spot now. You might be able to save yourself a litre or so worth of fuel, and I'm not exact on the specifics of fuel flow filling in these V8 supercars, but it's 3.1 litres a second, so that can even gain you 3 or 4 tenths of a second, and if you can save a little more than that, you might be able to save close to a second. And right now, a second is going to get you from 4th to 1st, because Ryan O'Sullivan right now is only 1.079 seconds behind our race leader in Dane Warren. So saving that bit of fuel behind may be able to do quite a lot for you. And Jake Burton and Forsan El Nabi, actually. Trick Sim Sports are usually pretty handy with their fuel. They do have one of the great fuel savers, Ross Rizzo, in their team. And now we have a bit of a look. Two teammates going side by side. This is for position number 5 as they come into the Parabolica. And Sam Blacklock is going to move himself past his TTR teammate in Josh Muggleton there. And Brett Loxton even looking like he might want to have a bit of a go. But unfortunately, he just gets a little bit crossed up halfway through that corner and might not be able to do anything with it. But now Sam is going to have to watch out because Josh has got a really good run on him. And looks like Josh is actually going to help out his old mate there and give him a bit of a bump draft as they come down into turn 1. But Brett Loxton is going to try and capitalize on that. Very, very tight squeeze there into turn 1, but Josh Muggleton does an excellent job to defend that position. And Brett Loxton will have to wait for another small opportunity like that before he can do anything.
Yeah, absolutely. And that all started from that move at Parabolica. That corner's not necessarily a corner you want to be making moves on, as you can tell, because Sam's lost quite a bit of gap to the car ahead of, I believe that is Ryan O'Sullivan. So that's how much difference it can make, making a move that isn't necessarily ideal. It did work, but it's cost him that sort of time. Oh, Loxton's had contact with Myers. Oh,
yeah, Loxton's just had a bit of a half spin there and kind of almost collected Brady Myers and Wayne Burke as they came through. Very, very lucky for those guys that nothing too substantial eventuated out of that. But actually, just having a look at that on the replay, it looks like Brady Myers actually just did give a bit of a bump there to Brett as they were coming through Lesmo 1. Brady got a nicer run out of the second chicane and was able to pull a bit of a move, but Brett Loxton just not quite able to hold it around the outside there. But we'll dive now down to David Kinman and Mitchell McLeod because they are still fighting it out. And David Kinman doing a nice job to retain that position for the time being, but he's looking a little uncomfortable with that car. He's also got a little bit of damage on it. And he does have Mitchell McLeod, who started at the rear of the pack, who we know is a good driver in these V8 supercars, as Steve Jansen just pulls out and goes for a little bit of a move on Martin Silvassi there. And we'll see if these guys lose as much time as the two TTR teammates did. Doesn't seem like they're going to. They're still going to be well within that draft. And Emily Jones just having a bit of a look around behind them as well. Good move there by Jansen, but I think David Kimmon's been putting in some good performances again this season, but I just feel that with that damage and the way his car's looking right now, pass from Mitchell McLeod is inevitable more than anything. But Emily Jones just in the background there, almost coming together with Martin Silvassi. But we're just going to head back up to the front of the field because Wayne Burke and Brady Myers have had a coming together, and we will get a cut price karting parts replay of that for you. And Wayne Burke going for the move. Brady tried to run him almost onto the grass as they came into the second chicane there. Wayne went very deep under brakes as they both did, and Brady trying to hold it around the outside. And I mean, there was about a car width's room, and I think maybe Wayne wasn't expecting him to follow him around the outside, and coming together for those guys. So more work to do for Wayne Burke after starting P4. Has it all to do, but it's all starting to kick off back in the field, back with Mitchell McLeod now as he goes for the move on on David Kinman, and Steve Jansen's going to try and go around the outside of Kinman. That gives him a better line coming through the second part of Ascari, and he's done a very good job to make it through there. So Mitchell McLeod now moves into what I believe is position number 16, and he will have a long way to go, though, to catch up to those ahead of him. Meanwhile, we have Rizzo and Loxton side by side as they come down into turn 1. And Loxton's actually got himself up next to Brady Myers. He's going to send it down into turn 1. The rear of that Holden Commodore of Loxton just skipping as he tries to use as much braking pressure as he can, but not quite able to make the pass happen. Brady Myers doing a great job to defend that position, but Ross Rizzo now is looking very, very handy behind these two guys, and he's just waiting for an opportunity to get by. But looks like they're all going to be pretty sensible through this second chicane here. As we've been saying, one spot can lose you a few seconds to your competitors ahead, and that's not what you want to do around this Monza circuit.
No, absolutely. And we know Ross is a very, very smart driver. He's very consistent, knows what he's doing, knows how to play the game. So we should see him move up possibly a few stops when the pit stops come around. As we all know that those Trick Sim Sports boys are very, very strategic. So we'll see what happens, but he's now right in behind Brett Loxton, and I'm sure he'll be able to get a move. And Brady Mites has actually gapped those two, so he's probably going to have to make a move at some stage if Loxton continues to hold him up.
Yeah, and Loxton, of course, sporting a little bit of damage from the last few laps, having a little bit of contact with a few cars there. But we'll take you back to the battle for the lead, and as we can see, just looking at this lead train, it does look like Josh Muggleton has died off a little bit from the back of that train. He's all out in no man's land, doesn't have a draft for himself, and he's not giving anyone else the draft either. So he's going to have to hope for a bit of battling up ahead if he's hoping to promote himself into the top 5. Right now, he's just holding gunner station, but now Jake Burton has decided that it is time to stop saving fuel and go for the lead, but Dane Warren doesn't want to have a bar of it. He's rubbing the rear of that TTR Commodore there, and he's going to he's got a very nice run coming out of the exit of the turn 1 and 2 complex, and I wouldn't be surprised if he goes for a bit of a move as they are bump drafting down into the second chicane, and even a little bit of a bump there. Are they going to be able to pull it up? Jake Burton just squirreling under brakes as he's pushed along by Dane Warren there. Amazingly, they both make the corner, and still all 4 wheels on the tarmac for both of those cars, so getting very aggressive up at the lead of this race here. And it's you know, nothing surprising from Dane Warren. Every time we see him out on the track, it is nothing but maximum attack. But where he has fallen down is in the pit stops, as both the leaders there got very wide coming out of the second Lesmo and just getting a little bit sideways. And luckily, El Nabi not too close, not able to make anything out of that. But these two guys right now are on maximum aggression, and Dane Warren definitely wants to hold that lead for whatever reason.
Yeah, absolutely. We know both Dane and Jake are very, very hard racers. They try to not to give you an inch, but they try to be fierce. So we'll see how this battle progresses. But Dane should be able to, if he's clever enough, pull a move off, sit behind, or pull a move off later on and just sit behind for the moment. So, he got a little bit sideways. He should be coming up in the same with Forzan.
Yep, so
pit lane all the time.
Yeah, the first of our leaders have started to pit, so Jake Burton now has a pretty big decision to make as to how far longer he wants to run. Of course, we will be seeing all cars take tyres, as they can change the tyres while they are refueling in these pits. But as they are pitting, Ross Rizzo and Brett Loxton side by side once again, but this time Ross is able to make it through on Loxton there, and Loxton almost just giving him a little bit of a thank you bump as they came out of the first chicane there. So nice job by Ross Rizzo, and we've seen some alternate strategies from Ross throughout the past in this V8 Supercars official series, so we will see how long he decides to run. He's going to come in the next lap or run a few extra. But Ryan O'Sullivan also stayed out, and he's actually quite close to Jake Burton. But meanwhile, in the pits, Forzan El Nabi has come out ahead of Dane Warren, so that's going to be very tricky. In fact, Sam Blacklock's also come out. So as I said, Dane Warren is always on maximum attack when we see him drive, but his fall down is usually in the pits. And once again, it does seem as if that is the case. I'm just having a look at our pit stop times now, and yeah, Dane Warren 3 seconds sitting longer in the pit lane than any of his major competitors around. So he's going to have a monster load worth of work to do to retain or to claw back some of that gap, because we've seen most of these guys lapping within a few tenths of a second each lap, and he's just flat out lost 3 seconds in that pit stop.
Yeah, that's very, very odd. I'm not sure if he took too much fuel. Everybody else took too little fuel, but now O'Sullivan and Burton are in, so this is going to be very interesting. Burton was actually fully locked up in heading in towards the line, so he pulled that up very, very well. But this will be very, very interesting to see where they come out in relation to their competitors, Blacklock and those sort of guys.
And of course, the guys who pitted the lap earlier are probably going to have a little bit more of an advantage. They have a lot of speed coming down into turn 1, but the pit lane exit does give you the inside of the corner. So we will eagerly await and see where our leaders are coming through now, as a few cars still filing themselves into the pit lane. So Forzan El Nabi now is coming down the straight, and Jake Burton just coming out of the pits. They're going to clear them easy peasy. So guys who pitted earlier make the good call, and even Dane Warren, who sat in the pits so much longer, is going to make it past Jake Burton and Ryan O'Sullivan as well. And Sully's also going to have to defend from Josh Muggleton, but unable to do so. Muggleton just had too much speed at the end of the straight there and managed to pull himself ahead of the ERT machine at the final notice. So nice job from him. But now Burton has a lot to do, because he's got a fairly, it's not a significant gap up to Dane. Both look like they're still within draft distance of each other. In fact, they are barely just within draft distance of each other, and Dane is barely within draft distance of the two cars up ahead. So they can still claw back that gap, but they've got a little bit of work to do right now, and it's very critical that these guys start to get a move on quite quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one thing to remember is Burton was actually up front a lot compared to these guys who are in front of him, who were actually in the draft the whole time. So possibly burnt a little bit more fuel and had to take a little bit extra compared to those who are ahead of them because of that draft effect. So not sure if that was the case or whether he did overfill, but we'll see what happens. And I'm sure Burton, who's actually got the overcut at the moment on newer tyres, it'll be very interesting to see whether he's actually going to have that extra lap different.
Yeah, absolutely right. But Muggleton must have had a slowdown as he was coming through the exit of Ascari, because he's had to recede 2 positions, one to Wayne Burke and one to Ryan O'Sullivan, who he just did such a great job of managing to overtake into turn 1. So he's going to have a little bit of work to do, but Blacklock now is having a look for the race lead on Forzan El Nabi, just managing to pull it up as his car skips, and Forzan electing to give a lot of room there, and that's allowed Dane Warren to just catch right back up. And Dane now is going to have a fantastic run as they come down into the second chicane. Maybe not quite enough to make anything work, but right now this is go time for Sam Blacklock. These 2 guys behind are going to fight. He's got a bit of a gap now, and he really needs to make something work. He just runs a little bit deep into the second chicane there as well, and that's lost him a little bit of time. You can see now Dane Warren just trying to, I guess, force Forzan El Nabi into a bit of a mistake here, and that is all the more allowing Jake Burton to close up that gap as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be interesting to see what happens as we get closer and closer to the end of this race, and patience is probably going to be something that these guys are going to have to think about, because this track, with it being the way it is, you are not going to want to lead on the last lap, especially in the turn 1.
Yeah, and Dane Warren there doing it. Yeah, it was a very aggressive move. It's not often, especially in a V8 supercar, that you see someone trying it down the inside of Ascari, but I think Dane Warren knows the severity of the situation that he's gotten himself into, and he is starting to press forward regardless, and Jake Burton is just going to, as I saw him tap the brakes there, and Forzan El Nabi pulls out very late as they come into Parabolica, and he's going to try and make something work there, making Dane Warren run a little bit wider than he would have liked, but Forzan not quite able to make it work. This is going to be big for Jake Burton, though. He's got now a double draft and might even try and make it 3 wide as they come into turn 1. Although it looks like there's a few ponies under that ASM Commodore, but Burton now fires it down the inside of El Nabi. He's going to do both of them in the 1, and very nice driving there from Jake Burton. A 2 for 1 down into turn number 1, passing Dane Warren and Forzan El Nabi. That was a fantastic piece of driving. Yeah,
absolutely. Beautiful move. Textbook stuff by Burton there to get up the inside of both of them into turn 1. But now Dane's going to have that draft as they head down towards the second chicane. And Ross going right out onto the grass there. So they're absolutely pushing the limit, and Dane's now right up on the tail of Burton, who's on a lap newer tyres, but it doesn't seem to be making all that much difference, as now they're starting to chase down Sam Blacklock, who's not too far ahead of them.
No, well, in these 41-degree track temps, as Dane Warren runs very wide and gets up on 2 wheels for just a moment, those high track temps, they do tend to heat up the tyres quite quickly, and it kind of feels like you only have a couple of good laps on these tyres before they kind of sponge off and turn into jelly. But Sam Blacklock now has the advantage, and he'll be trying to work his way away from his teammate in Jake Burton, and be interesting if Jake maybe defends this position a little more heavily than he would otherwise, just given that his teammate is in the running for this championship, and there are big points on offer tonight. We have a very large strength of field, 4,085 I rating, the average I rating between all of our competitors tonight, which is very strong for a Monday night. We probably usually see around 3,500, and of course that means that the points are bigger and better. And Sam Blacklock at the moment is in position to take home the cake. I believe there are 285 points on offer for first tonight, so that's going to put a big dent in everyone's hopes to winning this championship. And we can see Wayne Burke and Forzan El Nabi almost collects Dane Warren there, and just actually having to run wide and stay on the brakes a little longer so they can actually make the corner. Very good job not to cause any contact there, but Dane Warren also didn't get the best exit as they came out of the first chicane, and he's dropped quite a bit of that gap. And Jake Burton's picked up the pace massively as well. He's caught right up to Blacklock, so we will see if these guys decide to fight. I hope for our sake that they do get to, because that's going to be a good fight, and I'm sure that Sam will be feeling a little more in his chest, knowing that he's got this championship in a pretty good position right now, and he'll want to do anything that he can to make sure that he's maximizing the potential of that. And Jake Burton, at the same time, I mean, he doesn't race this series full-time and may just want to go for the glory and the champagne. So we'll have to see if these guys do decide to fight it out. But just checking up on the guys back in the pack now, it is a little spread out there, which is why we haven't been covering it so much for the second portion of this race. There's a little bit of a group forming with Cooper Webster, Brady Myers, Thomas Hinds, and Chris Coxhead, but still a few laps, I think, before anything's really going to eventuate from that. And everyone else just pretty spread out, seen a few different strategies from a few drivers, and just noticed as well that I think Michael Taliancic is still running. He's actually just pitted on the last lap around, so but he did extend his fuel window quite a lot longer than most people, which is not surprising. We have seen him do that several times throughout the many seasons that Michael has been competing in the iRacing Supercars official series. So he now finds himself in 10th position, having started from 15th. So he'll try and work himself up to Brett Loxton, a little bit of a gap up to there, and will be hard to do without much of a draft, but he'll persevere nonetheless. But we do take you back to the closest cars on track, which are the four up in front. Sam Blacklock still leads Jake Burton, Dane Warren, and Forzan El Nabi, and got about 6.5 laps left of racing to go, and it does feel like it's all starting to brew up the front here.
Yeah, absolutely. I do also want to point out that Ryan O'Sullivan and Josh Muggleton are actually quicker than Forzan El Nabi and a couple of guys at the front there. So if their pace can continue, they might actually be able to catch up and eventually turn this into about a 6-car battle for the lead.
Yeah, that's very true. They do have a little bit of a gap to recuperate, but they are chipping away at it bit by bit. These last few laps, I think they're probably going to need about 0.4 of a second a lap as it stands. But we see Dane Warren there just running a very different line as he came through the exit of Ascari compared to Jake Burton. And that's because he got very taily, just clipped the grass a little bit, and that rotated the rear of the car much more toward the inside of the wall than he would have wanted. And Dane Warren now just starting to blink a little bit as well. Maybe a bit of a little connection issue there for Dane, as we have seen a couple of times previously, I believe once he disconnected not 50 meters after crossing the line. So he'll have to hope that that's able to hang on for him. But it's still TTR 1 and 2 at the front of this little battle pack. And Dane seems to just fall away and then come back and fall away and then come back. I feel like he really needs to focus his efforts to just maintaining that very small gap that he has to Burton all the way throughout the lap and setting himself up for a good run at Parabolica. And maybe even try do what Burton pulled on him a few laps prior.
Yeah, absolutely. And getting closer and closer to this end, there's only a handful of laps, and they've just really got to be patient. And it'll be interesting to see who actually wins this, especially if Sullivan and Mugger can get into this, because it could be anyone's guess as to who's going to make the move at what corner, and it's probably going to happen at turn 1, but anything's going to be possible, and we've seen stranger things happen.
Yeah, well, all you have to do is go onto the iRacing Esports Network, hit that subscribe button, and then go back a few videos to last week's race at the Daytona International Road Course, where we saw the top 3 cars separated by less than a 1/10 of a second. And we were having a bit of a chat in our Discord while we were commentating that race. We couldn't pick who was going to win it, and none of us sure did. So that was very entertaining, and with the cars as close as they are now, it does feel very reminiscent of those moments. Dane could easily go for a massive draft in these last few laps and pull a move on both of them. Forzan Elnabi could have just been, sitting there hanging out for the last few laps and saving all of his energy for the last 2 to pull something magical together, although he's going to have to make up a little bit of ground. And Jake Burton is now bump drafting his teammate, but Dane Warren now goes for the move. Is he going to get both of them? I think Sam's going to have to give the room to avoid an accident, and there's a bit of a touch, and Dane's going to have to go wide there. Luckily for him, he hasn't lost too much ground. Unfortunately, does have to give a position to Forzan Elnabi, but he hasn't fallen off this train, hasn't had a massive spin, so he can still recuperate that time and those positions. But he does only have a small period of time to do it. And in the meantime, Josh Muggleton and Ryan O'Sullivan just behind them are very close as well. And they'll be probably aiming not to fight too much. They have been clawing that gap back, as we were saying. And the last lap around, it was pretty much dead even between the top 5 cars there. So they'll have to do a little more work to get themselves on the end of this train. But Dane Warren with a very unfortunate little incident there. I mean, that's racing down into turn 1 at Monza, isn't it? It's very difficult to get through there by yourself, let alone with another car next to you. And Sam Blacklock obviously very eager to retain that position, as it's going to do massively great things for him in terms of his championship. So Dane now with a 1 second gap to the lead still only. So with that kind of figure, I mean, it really is anyone's race at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. And just talking about that first chicane as well, it's with limited lock in these cars, it's extremely hard to go side by side and not make contact. It's very common to see it, but yeah, really unfortunate for Dane, but I'm sure he'll be able to recuperate himself and get back up to that front of the field.
Yeah, it's an interesting point you've made about the little lock. I remember years ago watching a video of Mark Winterbottom trying to go around a roundabout in a V8 supercar. I think he only had to reverse and have he had to make about a 72-point turn to make that work. As is the case with a lot of racing cars, they only like going around corners quickly and not particularly slowly or at too great an angle. So he's going to have to rethink his approach for any future moves into turn 1, and hope that he gets a little more room given to him next time, or has the opportunity to take a different line through there and make something else work. We are now just coming through the second Lesmo, or the first Lesmo, pardon me, and this second Lesmo is such a deceptive corner. You really want to take so much speed through there, and I mean, you still do. You're still going through there at about 130, 140 kilometers an hour. But the exit that you get down the Seraglio straight is just so critical for your run down to Ascari that it's very easy to either take a little too much of that inside curb or take way too much of the outside curb and run on the grass there.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you're pushing on the limit like these guys are, it's very, very easy to do so. They've just got to kind of be a little bit careful not to get too much, drop the wheel off too much, or it could end in disaster, and you don't really want to spin the wheels up either, as you don't want to wear them out and heat them up too much.
Yes, and they've only got a couple of laps left on these tyres. So as we come over the line now, there are just 3 laps to go. About 16.5 kilometers of racing left for you at Autodromo Nazionale Monza. And currently, Sam Blacklock is the man with everything to lose out in the front of this 4-car train, with Jake Burton, Forzan El Nabi, and Dane Warren tucked in very closely behind, all of them separated by just 1.044 seconds right now. And they've changed, I don't know how many lead changes there have been. There's been quite a few, but it has remained fairly stagnant the last few laps. And I have noticed that Jake Burton, he doesn't really seem to have much of an intention of passing Sam Blacklock right now, because, I mean, in my opinion, he's had several chances to do so. And coupled with the evidence that I have seen him bump drafting his teammate all the way down that main straight would suggest to me that he's going to hold station at least until the very, very last lap, where he may try something, hopefully for Sam, a low-risk move. But definitely seems like those two guys are very happy sitting out where they are right now. Forzan El Nabi just showing himself in the mirror of Burton, saying, just reminding me, mate, I have been sitting here for the last 6 or 7 laps, and I am prepared to do something should the opportunity arise. And just trying to force Jake into that opportunity opening up for him. But Jake Burton holding strong and doing a good job of rear gunning for his teammate there. But come into the parabolic, and now another one of those deceptively slow corners. As on most of the corners at Monza, take so much speed down these straights that you get to the corner and you forget how slow you really need to go by the time you meet that first apex. And Jake Burton having a look now, maybe just trying to cover off that look from Forzan behind, and just tucks back in. Again, doing a fantastic job, just securing that spot for his teammate just up ahead. And I'm surprised that Dane Warren hasn't kind of pushed forward and made a bit of a move, although it does seem like the tyres have fallen off quite dramatically. Fastest lap for these guys looking in the low 50s towards the beginning of this race, and they're now doing 51.5s, 51.8s, 51.6s. But interestingly, the 2 cars behind, Forzan El Nabi and Dane Warren, are actually faster than Jake Burton and Sam Blacklock right now, so it is not over. But Dane applying a bit of pressure to Forzan and giving him the hurry up. Forzan knows that Dane kind of has that speed at the moment, and I wonder if he'll battle it out as they decide to, when they probably change positions, or if he's going to let it go pretty easily.
Yeah, I'm not sure what his plan's going to be, but we'll kind of have to wait and see. But those two at the front are starting to look very, very eager to make moves and that sort of stuff. Dane's actually patiently waiting there, which is really interesting as he runs quite wide. But we'll see what happens. Is he going to come across the line this time? By and it be 2 laps to go, as Forzan once again poking his nose out just to show it to Burton and try and get him to possibly make a mistake. But Burton's a very, very good racer, and that's usually a difficult thing to do to him. Yeah,
absolutely. And Jake Burton, of course, has some extra racing experience racing in the Toyota AE86 or GT86 series in Australia this year after winning the Australian Driver Search competition. So he's, I actually went down to Phillip Island and saw him race. He was deep in a very, very eager pack of little 86s there, very close, very hard racing, and I'm sure that that has strengthened his skills throughout the year, and right now still doing a very good job, and now just giving his teammate a little bit of breathing room, and that could open him up to a bit of a move. But I mean, again, that's going to slow them down. Dane Warren's going very deep into the second chicane. He's going to have to put the move on Forzan El Nabi. Luckily, he just managed to scrub off enough speed before he made contact with the rear quarter of the Trick Sim Sports car there. But now that has opened up a really nice gap for the two TTR cars ahead. And we've only got 1.5 laps to go. So they really only have a couple more opportunities to make anything work. And you can see El Nabi and Dane just using as much road as they possibly can as they come out of the second Lesmo there to try and recuperate the time that they lost from that little, not so much a miscommunication, but just a bit of an awkward kind of moment there. And Dane bumping Forzan as they come into Ascari. And now the TTR cars up ahead, they've got a really nice gap. It's only 0.8 of a second, but last time round it was 0.2 of a second. So 0.6 of a lap. 0.6 they've lost on this lap, pardon me, which is very critical. They will regain a lot of that as they come down the straight here. But now we will see, will Burton go for the glory? Does he want to take the win? Sam Blacklock is defending. Jake Burton has a run, but he's pushing his teammate down the front straight, and it doesn't look like he's going to do anything unless it's the very last minute. But he puts on the brakes a little bit early and decides not to do anything. And Forzan El Nabi's coming in very hot, gives a little bit of a bump to Jake Burton as he was slowing down, and a bit of a cheeky strategy there. And Ryan O'Sullivan went for a move as well on pardon me, Josh Muggleton tried to go around the outside, wasn't able to make it work though, had to cut to the inside of the course. And Jake Burton, a little bit cheeky, slowing up so much into turn one, catching Forzan El Nabi out by surprise. But Jake Burton is fully entitled to do that. He has the corner, and he can choose to do into turn one as he likes, so long as he doesn't stop there. And now Dane Warren is going to have to try and make a move work on Forzan El Nabi. Forzan can keep himself in third right now. That may just be enough to keep his championship hopes alive. But right now, Sam Blacklock is the man out in front. He's only got 1, 2, 3, 4 corners to go before the end of this race. And really, the most critical one is this, the Ascari chicane. He's made it through there unscathed so far. No spin on the exit. No. So he's only got 1 corner to go before he can say that he won the iRacing V8 Supercars official race at Monza. But Dane Warren's not going to settle for anything less than third, it looks like, because he does have a bit of a look. He's going to have to get a very good run coming out of the final corner. The Parabolica doesn't look like he's able to do so, but Sam Blacklock, after playing it right in the pits, has done everything that he can to keep himself ahead, and he takes out the iRacing V8 Supercars official race here at Autodromo Nazionale Monza. He was followed closely by Jake Burton, Forzan El Nabi, Dane Warren. Muggleton managed to come home for 5th position, and Ryan O'Sullivan will have to settle for 6th. So still have a few cars obviously coming over the line, which we will get to shortly. Michael Taliancic picking up another spot, and I think Greg Sharp having a little bit of a battle, and Mitchell McLeod and Steve Jansen, their battle's not done. McLeod going for the outside line, which gives them some nice speed as they come out of the exit there, and Steve Jansen just getting a little bit crossed up midway through the Parabolica, so they come home for 15th and 16th respectively. Martin Silvassi over the line, as is Greg Sharp, who managed to pick up a spot on that last lap as well. But a very entertaining race here at Monza tonight. Quite a few changes for the lead, and all of the top 4 tonight finished within 1.1 seconds of each other, which is very impressive. And as we saw, there was a bit of a disparity in qualifying, but as you mentioned in the pre-race camp, that draft really kept everyone together nicely throughout that race.
Yeah, absolutely. It all came down to a strategy call in the end, which paid off for the guys at Trans-Tasman Racing, with them getting a 1-2 finish and Blacklock walking away the hefty amount of points towards championship as well. So it's going to be very interesting heading into the next 2 rounds at Spa and Phillip Island for what is going to be actually some quite lengthy races as well. So it's going to be all on in those last 2 rounds, and I'm not and I can't wait for it.
Yeah, absolutely. There is going to be a lot of endurance factor in those last 2 rounds. I think we've got something like 46 laps at Phillip Island for the last round and 28 laps at Spa next week, which should take us well over the hour mark. But as for tonight's race, we will take you through our final order. Sam Blacklock retaining his championship lead and extending it even further with a win here at Circuit Monza. Jake Burton, his teammate, followed closely behind, just 0.357 seconds, came in second place. And Forzan El Nabi doing a good job retaining third throughout that entire race. Dane Warren came home in fourth. Josh Muggleton, after finding himself in no man's land for a while, picked up a partner in Ryan O'Sullivan and managed to hold him off and picked up top 5 for himself. And Sully ended up in 6th position. Ross Rizzo came home in 7th, making his way up. Wayne Burke had a bit of an atrocious race, a slowdown early on, and a couple of incidents later throughout the race, meaning he came home in position number 8, down from 4. Michael Taliancic using a bit of strategy to get himself up into 9th from 15th, and Brett Loxton rounded out your top 10.
In 11th, we have Brady Myers, followed by Thomas Hinds, who started in 22nd, made up 10 positions to finish in 12th. So a good drive by Hinsey there. 13th will go to Chris Coxseed, followed by Cooper Webster in 14th. Mitchell McLeod will round out the top 15 after starting in 25th, all the way at the back of the field. 16th will go to Steve Jansen, followed by Martin Silvestri in 17th. 18th will go to Greg Sharp with David Miller in 19th. And rounding out the top 20 will be David Kinman.
Yes, and then Jordan Ross having a very poor performance compared to last time we saw him out. He ended up in 21st. Emily Jones didn't see much of her tonight, unfortunately. She ended up in 22nd, but I'm sure she'll be back for another race and get a little more TV time. Corey Preston as well. Didn't see a lot of Corey throughout this race. Actually started 10th and ended up 23rd, so must have had some unfortunately throughout that one. And then our non-finishers, Sam Sutton and Thomas McMillan. But the action has ended tonight, but it has not finished. We have some events coming up on V8's Online Wednesday and the iRacing Esports Network. In fact, Wednesday night on the iRacing Esports Network, we have the V8's Online Porsche Super Cup at Laguna Seca, which is going to be a fantastic race. I know I'll be heavily involved in that. At Friday, we have the Australian Online Supercar Championship at Spa for 650 kilometers. Always fantastic watching these V8s in those long enduros. Very entertaining indeed. Then on Sunday, we have the Oceanic Endurance Championship at Monza with prototypes and GT cars. That is another one to definitely keep an eye out on for. And on Sunday as well, we have the Majors Series doing the Pocono 500. And of course, that can all be found on V8's Online and the iRacing Esports Network. And just a reminder to all you guys out there, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. And if you thought that this race was pretty good and you'd like to watch a couple more, don't forget to smash that like button as well, because it really does help us all in the long run. And it helps out the sim racing community and helps us all grow together as one. And don't forget as well to tune in next Monday on the iRacing Esports Network for the iRacing official V8 Supercars series at Spa-Francorchamps, where we will have 28 laps of maximum attack through the Belgian hills. But from me tonight and from Cameron Dance and Jay Kennedy on the buttons, we thank you so much for watching. You have a good night, and we'll see you next time.
3, 2, 1.
Last year I was sitting at a desk as a sales manager, and now I'm official McLaren F1 simulated test driver.
Magnussen is 1.4 behind.
This opportunity is huge.
Oh, that's it, 46.1. That's faster than the factory McLaren driver, and he's done 6 laps.
The following is a presentation of the iRacing Esports Network.